never like
What is up everybody, Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video, another day at the office to say like this. We got some news, so this is gonna be kind of like a community update video. First we're gonna talk about Arena, so we got some news regarding Arena right here. We're gonna talk about that as well, and then we're gonna talk about the new champions that they're gonna get released as well in the next 1 week or a couple of weeks. I'm not 100% sure, but we do have a bunch of new champions coming into the game as well, guys. First, let's jump over and talk about Arena, because I feel like we can quickly explain that and then we can jump over to the champions. So basically what Green Knight is saying, guys, they have been receiving quite a number of questions concerning the current state of affairs in the Classic Arena, and would like to elaborate on what we're planning to do to improve the situation. The ultimate goal is to make the progression in the Bronze and Silver easier, so that the arena in these tiers become less of a head against wall bashing exercise. So yeah, a lot of you guys are struggling with Arena now. I know it's not all about your champions, their champions, it's about the way you build your champions as well, but it's true, there are way too many powerful teams in the lower tiers of Arena, which they shouldn't be clashing with you guys, right? The matchmaking adjustments that they will do, guys, they will change only for Bronze and Silver tiers, so not for Gold, not for Platinum. We'll still be filtering the opponents in these tiers by the player's account power and level as before, but the pairing in Bronze will be confirmed in such a way that newbies won't meet the teams way too much out of their depth. Now, I'm not sure how good it's gonna work, because it sounds like it's pretty much gonna be based on the same principles, so hopefully this will be a good fixture for all of you guys to be able to progress and complete your missions there. So more or less, that's kind of the things that are changing. They're saying they want to keep Gold a bit more competitive. Honestly, I don't feel it as competitive, but that's the idea that they're having here. So as for Gold, where we do not filter opponents by their account power here and use only the current arena placement as the main criteria when picking up the opponents, this tier will remain challenging. Be ready to fight strong opponents here to remain competitive. Where is the competitiveness in there? Because it doesn't really give good rewards or anything like that, so it's not really worth it to be competitive for Gold unless you want to farm medals and you want to do your missions, right? Talking about defensive battles, we'll implement a flexible system to prevent players from being demoted to the lower tiers too quickly by losing defensive battles in Bronze and Silver tiers. It is logical to assume the higher your tier, the greater is the number of points that you can potentially lose in the defensive battles. And last but not least, while the changes will make the arena easier in terms of progression, remember that it's still one of the most competitive game elements. Keep improving your team, explore different strategies, watch videos dedicated to arena tactics on YouTube created by enthusiastic players and content creators to increase your knowledge, and you'll be able to reach higher tiers eventually. So good luck everybody. Hopefully the system is gonna be fixed and is gonna work a bit better in your favor. Don't forget, don't spend all your resources on champions and leveling up champions and pulling shards. Farm gear. This is a game of gear more than a game of champions, guys. Once you're gonna understand that, you're gonna be able to beat the game. Now, moving over to the new champions that got released, guys, and maybe the answer of my prayers. Meet Raid's newest champions. We're bringing 10 awesome new champions to help you tackle Telleria's biggest challenges. Check out their details below. Seems like we're getting new champions every single month. I feel like if they're keeping it up like this, by next month, June, probably they're gonna open the new Shadow King faction. So make sure you guys are pushing your faction wars as hard as you can to complete them before that opens, because it's gonna become more difficult for you to get Lydia. We're gonna have some legendary champions, epic champions, and of course rare champions. We're gonna start right here with Geomancer, an epic force attack champion from the Dwarf faction. He looks pretty scary in that avatar right there, guys. He has a wall of text in his description here. Seems like he needs quite a decent amount of books. I would say we need, what, 15 books in total by the looks of it. Starting with the first skill, attacks all enemies, has a 30% chance of placing a 50% decrease accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Pretty good skill right there, AoE on the A1. The A2 removes all buffs from a target enemy, then attacks them. Steals all buffs instead if the target is under a HP burn debuff placed by this champion. Reduces the cooldown of a quicksand grasp by 2 turns if the target is killed by this skill while under a HP burn debuff placed by this champion. Kinda feels like HP burn up and down. He needs to place that HP burn. So let's find out where is that HP burn skill. A3. Ascended. Fully depletes the target's turn meter, fills this champion's turn meter by the amount the target loses, has a 75% chance of placing a HP burn and a weaken debuff on the target for 3 turns. So single target HP burn and a weaken. We don't have a defense down in here to actually call him good for clan boss. Now the passive decreases the damage all allies receive by 15% and deflects the damage onto each enemy under HP burn debuff placed by this champion. Whenever this champion is attacked, deflects 30% of the damage instead. His aura increases ally HP in all battles by 25%. Doesn't look like a wow sort of champion, honestly. Moving over to the next one, Ruel the Handsmaster, our first legendary right here. He's gonna be used for the fusion, guys. So we're gonna be able to fuse this champion. He does look badass. He's a spirit attack champion from the Dark Elf faction. Seems like it's gonna be a great combo with Thea the Vault Angel or even on its own. I do hope he has good multipliers, honestly. So the A1 attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a defense down for 2 turns. Transfers a random debuff from this champion to the target if the target is under a hex debuff. He requires in total I think 11 books. His A2 attacks all enemies, places an extra hit on enemies under hex debuffs, will ignore 25% of each target's defense if there are 4 or more enemies under a hex debuff. So hopefully this skill right here will have good multipliers. The A3 places a 50% increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, then places a hex debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Also places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns and fills this champion's turn meter by 50. So basically use the A3, rotate into the A2 and wreck the enemy team. I feel like that's kind of the idea here. Moving over to the passive, decreases the speed of enemies under hex debuff by 5% and decreases the resistance of those enemies by 10%. Also increases the damage enemies under hex debuffs receive by 10% and decreases the value of heals they receive by 30%. A very interesting passive for sure. These effects do not stack if there are multiple rules on the same team. His aura increases ally crit rate in all battles by 20%. Awesome aura as well. I feel like I missed this in the previous video when we talked about him. I don't remember his aura to be as good. But moving over to the next champion, Hellyer, Force Defense Bannerlord the champion. I think he was kind of featured in their own video regarding the faction, but his A1 attacks one enemy, increases this champion's defense by 5% if this attack is critical, stacks up to 20, will also heal this champion by 75% of their defense after attacking if their defense has already been increased by 20%. Pretty weird A1 here. The A2 Solar Blessing attacks all enemies, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of the damage inflicted. So hopefully he'll be dealing tons and tons of damage. His A3 transfers all debuffs from all allies to a target enemy, then attacks that enemy with the default skill, converts this champion's resistance into additional accuracy when using this skill. That sounds very interesting. I gotta say it. Sounds like a very interesting sort of skill. I would like to see more champions like this. The first passive, whenever an ally that has 2 or more debuffs is attacked, this champion will absorb 30% of the damage inflicted on that ally. His aura increases ally resistance in all battles by 60. I feel like he could be a good defensive champion for your arena team. Just because of his passive. Whenever an ally that has 2 or more debuffs is attacked, this champion will absorb 30% of the damage inflicted on that ally. So him being Force Affinity as well, being strong towards Strandas, I feel like he might be a very good option to replace Ursaga, for example. Moving over to the next champion, we have Gorlos Hal Mao. Spirit attack champion from the Demon Spawn faction. He kind of looks like a Demogorgon for whoever saw Stranger Things, but he needs as well a decent amount of books, up to 15 around there. His A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit fills this champion's turn meter by 10% if the target is under a defense down, HP burn, or decrease accuracy debuff. His A2 attacks all enemies, fully booked, 100% chance of placing defense down for 2 turns, so that's AoE, pretty good. His A3 attacks one enemy, has 100% chance fully booked of placing HP burn and a decreased accuracy for 3 turns, fills this champion's turn meter by 20% if this attack is critical. His aura increases ally attack in Doom Tower battles by 30%. Honestly, he kinda feels like a mad champion. Moving over to the next champion, we have Hotatsu, magic defense-based champion from the Shadowkin faction. Another sort of Demogorgon in here. We have the A1 attacks one enemy, has a 40% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. The A2 attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance, fully booked 80% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. I kind of reacted like 80% is usually 75, never really 80, so it's a bit odd to see that happening there. His A3 places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns and a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 1 turn. So each of these skills are on a 3-turn cooldown. That kind of might make him decent for clan boss, as long as you use a Vizier with him to have for attack down, defense down, and of course have the leech up and running as well. His passive removes one random debuff from this champion at the start of each turn. Will remove stun, sleep, freeze, fear, true fear, and provoke debuffs before other debuffs. So basically, he's gonna be good for the stun. He can be great as a stun taker on a normal high defense team, and you don't need a cleanser in the team. With a Vizier in the team, having defense down, leech, and attack down, I feel like is some sort of potential here. Something is clicking in my brain right now, but we gotta play him out. His aura increases ally defense in all battles by 25%. Even better. I like this champion. Demogorgon, I wanna get you. I wanna try you out. Moving over to the next champion, we have Chani. Epic magic attack champion from the Shadowkin faction again, guys. We have the A1, attacks one enemy, has a 60% chance of placing a poison sensitivity debuff for 2 turns. The A2 places a 50% increased accuracy buff, a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy, places a HP burn debuff for 2 turns if this attack is critical. The A3 attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of decreasing the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. Then we have the passive, immune to decreased accuracy debuffs, increases this champion's crit rate by 0.05 for every point of accuracy they have. Wow, that sounds a bit interesting. Like, I'm gonna give him a good amount of accuracy, and then I managed to get some crit rate from it as well because of the passive. Very, very interesting. And then you can use his aura, increases ally accuracy in all battles by 40. So I feel like this champion right here can have some sort of weird situation with the passive, the accuracy, his crit rate. But rather than that, I don't see much potential in the champion, honestly. Just his kit, his A2 doesn't sound too good, honestly. Now, the A3 on the other hand, which is going to be on a 3-turn cooldown, yeah, he can do what Vizier does, but on a 3-turn cooldown. Is that going to be enough for clan boss? On a 2-to-1 ratio, it might be. But rather than that, not really. Moving over to the next champion, we have Gamebo the Dishonored, epic void attack champion from the Shadowkin faction. Now, he might be the answer to my prayers, to our prayers, guys. His A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit steals any increased attack buffs. Each hit also has a 30% chance of stealing one random buff. The increased attack buff steal cannot be resisted. Sounds pretty good. We need 2, 4, 6, 8 books in the A1, 10, again, 15 books on this champion as well. Seems like he's a sort of package deal offer, every champion for 15 books, or every champion needs 15 books. The A2 attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of decreasing the duration of all buffs by 1 turn. This effect cannot be resisted on critical hits, right? So that means that no matter what buff you're gonna have, I'm gonna strip that off with you without getting resisted, no matter what. The A3 places a 30% increased crit rate buff, a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn. That allows me to build him with 70% crit rate only. His passive, immune to decreased attack debuffs, will ignore unkillable buffs when attacking under an increased attack buff. Swift parry sets, get ready to get destroyed with this champion. That's the answer to my prayer, guys, for whoever was wondering. I feel like this champion has a good potential for those specific cancer teams in Arena with Swift parry sets. So hopefully he's gonna have decent multipliers and he can actually throw in some good numbers for us. I'm not sure if I read the aura or no, but increases ally speed in arena battles by 20%. Moving over to the next champion, we have Burangiri, Epic Force defense-based champion from the Shadowkin faction as well. We have the A1, attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. The A2 attacks all enemies, has a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. This is definitely a faction war champion. How I've told you guys, you've seen how many new champions we're getting for the Shadowkin faction. Make sure you're pushing those faction wars. So the A3 places a strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. Also places a shield buff for 2 turns on all allies with less than 50% HP. The shield buff is equal to 15% of the target's max HP. That can go down on a 4-turn cooldown. The first passive heals this champion by 50% of their max HP whenever an ally or an enemy dies. That sounds pretty good. His aura increases ally resistance in all battles by 40. Pretty good epic for faction wars, honestly. I like the AoE stun. Moving over to the next champion, the first rare on the list, guys, we have Marauder, something like that. Rare Spirit HP champion from the Shadowkin. We have the A1 Kanabo Jutsu. Attacks one enemy, ascended, attacks one enemy with a 15% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. The A2 attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 25% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. His A3 has a 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn, places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns equal to 20% of their max HP, also places a 15% reflect damage buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. That's on a 3-turn cooldown fully booked. Provoke goes up to 75% chance, but I'm not sure if it's single target or AoE, it doesn't really specify that. The aura increases ally HP in all battles by 15%. Moving over to the next champion, Vagabond. Spirit support champion from the Shadowkin faction. Seems like he's our last champion. We have the A1 attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn. His A2 attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 1 turn. Also fills this champion's turn meter by 15% and fills the turn meter of the ally with the highest turn meter by 15%. His A3 Ascended fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% and places a 25% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. And the aura increases ally accuracy in arena battles by 30. Decent rare champions. I don't feel like any of the champions are like game changing, honestly, except the Void epic one that I've told you he might have some potential for that. The defense champion for clan boss, he might be a bit of a fun as well. Some of them look pretty interesting, but the rare champions are kind of like meh, not great. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about these champions? Excited about any of them? And how you feel about getting so many new champions every single month, guys? Do let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe for more content, turn on notifications to see when we upload next. Appreciate all of you guys hanging in here till the end, and I'll see you all soon on another video. Till then, peace out.